This is a little bit different of a vlog this week. Our computer crashed, and so we were waiting on a part to come to be able to use our other device to edit. So we thought it'd be fun to do a little bit of a different style video, so we can do a Q&A. So on Facebook and Instagram, we threw it out there asking you what your questions were about our homestead and our homestead journey. And we got some feedback and some questions, so we thought we'd just take some time to answer them. And if you have more questions, feel free to comment below. I'm Sarah.
I'm Josh.
And we are homesteaders at Sissibooacreshomestead in rural Nova Scotia. So the first question, are you ready?
Yep.
How long did you research and watch other homesteaders before deciding to start your own homestead? Started watching the Road show in 2016. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
So like 4 years? Well, no, because
I would say it's more like 4 months, to be honest.
4 months before we started.
Well, homesteading you can start with a garden. That's what we started with. We started gardening. It wasn't even our land. We were renting at the time.
I kept calling us the homeless homesteaders. Josh did not like that nickname.
Yeah, I'd say 4 months, but then it's taken us 4 years to the point where we have animals.
Yeah, or I guess 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
Because last spring is when we started, so we were like 10 months into homesteading, like officially homesteading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On our own property.
Yeah, on our own property. Yeah, because when we watched, it started out as like, because I'm a transplant from the U.S. into Canada, and so I missed certain places back home, and we were watching YouTube. YouTube was our TV. And oftentimes in the evening we sat and watched YouTube, right? And you can see Seal in the background, like prowling on the counter. So in the evenings we would watch YouTube as our entertainment. And I saw something about a chicken guy, and we clicked on it. And the reason we actually clicked on it, I think, was because he was from the hometown that I grew up in or was born in. And I wanted to see clips of the city. And every once in a while there'd be a snippet of the city, but for the most part, this just raising chickens and showing you how to do it. And he's like a huge successful YouTube channel now, but you should check him out if you want more details on how to start chicken farming and he has other animals now too. He has cows and sheep and pigs and kind of really branching out to all kinds of different homestead stuff. His name is Justin Rhodes in the Road show. But anyway, so that's what got us started with homesteading interest. I could not grow like one flower growing up. That was not my skill. You, on the other hand,
I grew up on a vegetable farm, so I guess kind of depends on what you mean by homesteading. I could say I've been homesteading my whole life, but for the purpose of doing it so that we know where our food comes from, growing our own food.
I gotta get Seal. You can get talking.
For those reasons, it really started back in 4 months after we started watching Justin's videos back in the spring of 2017.
Yeah, it was definitely, I would say we started as fast as we could, just learning skills, because then we were like, okay, well, we don't want our own property, we can't have a bunch of animals and stuff right now, but we really want to do something, we really want to get started. And so everything I kept reading on these articles that were connected, I found them on Pinterest, but they were people's blogs basically, was saying 20 things you can do homesteading in your apartment in the city or whatever. And so a lot of them are make your own soap, and I'm attempting to make my own soap now in 2021. I did not branch into that fast. But we grew a garden, and we researched as much as we could. So long answer to that short question is about 4 months.
Yeah.
And then 3.5 years before we actually got our homestead, our physical homestead. What are your favorite tasks? The most complicated tasks? I ask because I will be homesteading soon. Well, congrats on homesteading soon. That's exciting. What are your favorite tasks? And then what are the most complicated tasks?
Complicated.
I think butchering.
Oh, yeah.
Butchering is complicated. It's not hard once you get used to it, but I would say butchering is it's just 5 million little details. Yeah. So in that way it feels complicated, and it felt really intimidating at first. And you'll notice, like, we don't have a butchering video on YouTube, like on our channel. But if you want butchering details, you can always contact us and we can give you our experience. I think butchering would be complicated to me, maybe, is the most complicated.
Yep.
My favorite is, I think, the chicks. Like having baby chickens or collecting eggs. Like seeing the results of it all. Yeah. And then probably my other complicated thing would be getting the chickens not to poop in their nesting boxes and not pooping on their eggs. Or getting the chickens just to lay in the nesting boxes, period. That, I think, yeah. But I think the nice thing about homesteading is, if it's complicated, there's usually an answer, and it's usually not as complicated as it feels. It's just an unknown area unless you grew up doing this and just know all the things. I think it's just, it can feel really complicated or really stressful, but I think my best advice is take it slow. Don't jump into all the different pieces of homesteading all at once. Right now, if you're not homesteading yet, but you're planning to, you said, then what can you be doing now? Small steps, little pieces at a time. I think. Okay, so what do you think is most complicated?
I think I would agree. Butchering chickens would probably be the most complicated. Just lots of little details, what to do, what not to do. And then my favorite thing to do. Probably cool. I'm gonna give it a wide term and say harvesting.
Harvesting, okay.
So whether it's the act of putting the chicken into the freezer because the rest of it's been messy, but it's very worrying to see those birds going in the freezer.
Yeah.
Or harvesting the food off the plants, or collecting the eggs.
Yeah. So bringing in the bounty of all those hours and days of work.
Well, that and, building structures.
Yeah.
That's fun too.
Yeah. I also like to eat the stuff that we produce. There is nothing like eating something that you grew. There's nothing quite like that.
Yeah, like for supper tonight we had chicken and green beans that we grew ourselves.
Yeah.
Then we run out of our own potatoes, but
well, actually, I opened the drawer to get potatoes the other day, looking to see the last ones from this summer, and they've all like crazy sprouted. There's a whole drawer full of sprouted potatoes in the bin, so they're ready for replanting. So I guess we could eat those, but
so no, we can plant them.
Yeah, we'll plant them. Yeah, I wouldn't eat them. They're mushy, or not mushy, but like yeah, they would not be a tasty. I don't think.
No.
Okay, are you looking to get more animals, and if so, what kind?
Ooh, hot
It's a loaded question.
I think the two animals we've talked about most right now are a pig or a cow, dairy or meat.
Yeah.
We're really looking, I think, at branching into another meat animal, because chickens actually, although they're easy to work with because they're so small, but they're also one of the most expensive ones to raise.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Money per pound.
Which we were really surprised to learn that. Like, we thought, chickens are super economical, and like, if you do all the things that we try to do to save on the money, but like raise them really healthy and really, really fair, happy meat, like those chickens have a good life. But then, we're talking to friends and talking to other homesteaders and realizing like chickens are actually more expensive to raise than a beef cattle. If you've got grass and access to reasonably priced hay. So it's kind of crazy. It's just also having the ability to move those large animals too. I mean, we have a 4-door Toyota Camry. We're not fitting no cow in there. But also if you have a neighbor who has a tractor or a truck, those kind of things, like who can haul hay or bring the cow to you, and you pay them in eggs, or you can pay them with money or whatever. Yeah. I think there's definitely room for that. I think we've talked about cows, but at this point we don't have the infrastructure built. As much as we would love a cow, because when you get into homesteading, if you already are homesteading, then you know this. Once you get one animal, you kind of just want them all. They say chickens are like the gateway drug to homesteading, to getting other animals. I think if we both just let loose, we'd have all the animals. Or maybe I would have all the animals, and Josh would maybe be sad. But yeah, I think the most likely that we'll actually go forward with next and not saying when we're going to do that at this point is probably a pig, like a meat pig.
Like, we really don't need much infrastructure for one single pig.
Yeah, 1 or 2 pigs, and then one.
I'll probably run him after the meat birds are done this year.
This question ties in really well with another question, so I'll ask it now. The question is, what is your business model? And I laughed when I heard this question because, like, oh, what is that? Like, are we supposed to have that? No, we kind of have a business model in our heads, and then like what we've talked about. And I think the biggest thing of our business model is we're not a business at this point. We are a homestead. We are interested in sustainability, not self-sustainable fully, because we believe in community, where not one person is not supposed to do everything for themselves. The whole point of community is that we all bring different skills and different things to offer. So that's kind of our business model. I'm sure some of the business-minded people are really cringing right now hearing this. But one thing that we are striving to do is when we grow something for our own consumption, can we produce enough to sell to make to balance it out? So if I raise 10 chickens for us to put in the freezer for us to eat during the year, imagine if we only raised 10 chickens. But if I raise 10 chickens just for our own consumption, can I raise 20, 10 for us, and then the other 20 I sell at enough profit that it covers the full cost of raising all 20 birds? So then essentially the meat I'm eating, that we're eating, is free. So basically that's the model we followed with our meat birds last year. And we were able to raise enough meat for ourselves and enough meat that we've been able to sell, all within the legal taxable limits. Because without having a quota, you have to stay under a certain amount. But we were able to raise enough meat to sell to cover the cost. So that's kind of our business model is we're essentially getting free food because we're selling enough to cover our costs and our time. And we sell it at enough of a profit that it counts in our butcher time, it counts in the electricity we use to run our poultry net, it covers all the feed, the water, and then some plus. So that's kind of our business model. It's not a model to get rich off of, and it's not a model to, live off your homestead full time. Like Josh works full time outside of the home as a carpenter. So we by no means are living off of our homestead financially.
I think the one thing for us is that because we just moved here to Nova Scotia, just over a year ago now, is that we're still trying to identify the needs. So what people are looking for, what people want to buy. Like we could raise tons and tons of quail eggs, but if no one wants them, then we're not going to sell any. So we're still trying to identify those needs, those things that people want locally around us.
Yeah. So locally we have a Facebook group for our local town. And I threw a post out there a couple of weeks ago asking people if we had fresh eggs, were there people who are interested in buying weekly? And then we got a lot of good feedback. People are interested and wanted regular fresh eggs. And then it kind of fell into our laps, our big flock of chickens that you may have seen in one of our earlier videos, that we ended up kind of adopting someone else's flock and brought in like 48 new chickens plus other birds. So now they've started laying. It took some time, winter time, the adjustment from moving from another farm and everything. And now we started laying. But first we kind of did a little bit of market research, asking locals, like, were they interested? Would we have people who actually wanted to buy eggs if we had them? Because it wouldn't be a great business practice if we get a bunch of chickens, have a bunch of eggs, and then check on it. So that's kind of something we've kind of done. We did the opposite, raising our meat birds. We raised them hoping that there would be people who wanted to buy them. We did have people tell us they were interested, and thankfully it's worked out really well. We didn't go like extreme and do like 500 birds or anything like that. So I would say if for a business plan, that's kind of, I won't give you a business advice because we're kind of loose on that. Yeah, I am taking currently an online course on the basics of business for our homestead. So maybe in the future we will have a little bit more official sounding plans.
But right now, basically, our business plan is raise enough food for us to eat and cover our costs.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do.
And if there's an extra profit, then that's great. Like,
Yep.
yeah. What has been the hardest part so far?
Hardest part so far. Homesteading.
It's really cold when you go out to fill waters right now. Your fingers freeze.
I think growing pains, I think, has been the hardest part so far. What I mean by that is not getting ahead of yourself with getting 65 birds when you got a short-term solution for them, but the long-term, you're not quite ready for them yet. And then you're trying to play catch-up.
I think the hardest part for me is seeing animals die. Butchering is a hard day in some ways. Like, it's kind of beautiful in a weird way because you are seeing the full circle of the animal that you brought and you were stewarding all this time and taking care of. But in reality, it is an animal dying, right? So that is sad. I think it's really interesting, I guess, and kind of humbling, I think, to actually see and grasp that life, that when you buy your stuff from the grocery store and you're not exposed to farm life and not exposed to where these animals are raised and the process of them being butchered, you kind of don't realize what you're consuming. Like, you just pay for it. You may even grumble about how much you have to pay for it. And you don't have the same appreciation and understanding of, like, oh my goodness, like, the whole process of this is really extreme in some ways. They started as this cute little chick and then you're eating them. Which may sound really awful. So I think just seeing the cycle of life and seeing, I think, like, because throughout the time sometimes the chicken will die, or we've been really lucky and really blessed not to have any predators coming in at this time. We have friends they've lost a lot of their flock before. So I think just seeing animals die is really hard. But I think that's. This question is, what animals do you currently have and why? So if you want an actual chicken count, come back yesterday. No, come back a different day, because I don't know how many chickens we actually have.
Chickens?
Yeah, we have less than 100. Less than 70.
Actual chickens, we have...
Did we get 48 from
60.
We have 60?
We have 55 from the new flock, and then 5 original.
So including roosters, we have 60. Yeah. And then we have 5 geese. And 2 ducks.
2 runner ducks.
Yeah.
And 1 guinea fowl. One very loud guinea fowl.
One very loud guinea fowl. And aggressive.
One very sleepy kitty.
Yeah. One. I don't know if you can see Seal. And then we have our dog Sadie as well. So the question is, what animals do you have currently and why? So why? Because we love our pets. So that's why we have our pets. But as far as, like, homestead animals, I think that's what the actual question is.
I would say all of our animals have a purpose.
Sure. Yes. Like, Seal is supposed to catch mice.
And chipmunks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he has.
He does sometimes. Yeah, in the summertime.
Sadie keeps predators away.
Sadie is an awesome guard dog. Like, an awesome guard dog. The runner ducks currently don't have a purpose. We would like to find some lady runner ducks and have lots of happy little cute runner ducks, but it's extremely hard to find runner ducks here so far. So if you are watching this and you are in Nova Scotia and you're local to us, please get in contact with us if you know where we can find runner ducks, female runner ducks, because we would love to have baby ducks. The geese are really good for guard geese. So, like, geese have been known throughout history as guard animals. Like, I believe it's the Romans used to use them in war times to, like, alert when other enemies were, I guess, coming to attack. They're really loud and they hiss. If you've never been around a geese or a goose. Geese.
And they bite.
Yeah. These ones, we haven't been bit yet, though, I don't think. Have you?
I was bit the day we went to pick them up.
Okay. Apparently I'm the geese wrangler, not Josh. So we hope to have goose eggs.
Yeah. We got 3 females and 2 males.
Yeah. So back to our unofficial business plan. Maybe at some point we would have baby geese, because there are other farmers and homesteaders looking for geese to do the exact same thing. You can put geese in. You really should have geese in pairs at minimum, because they mate for life, and they do associate with other birds and they do okay, but they really need that other goose with them. But there are other homesteaders who are looking for geese, Asgard geese in their flocks.
Yeah, because a lot of people they'll take one or two geese and they'll put them in with their chickens, and basically that keeps away and takes care of all your aerial predators, except for maybe eagles. I'm not sure about those ones. But crows and stuff like that, they're not going to mess with your flock if you had a goose out there. And then even some land animals as well, like raccoons and stuff, typically won't mess with a goose.
Yeah, and they're really loud, so even if they're not big enough to fight off something larger, sometimes their sounds will be enough just to scare off.
Or alert you to what's going on.
Yes. Like when we picked him up, Josh literally had to hold him way out here, and it was like ringing in your ears. It was so loud. So I'll have to get a recording of him sometime.
Not me holding him.
Yeah. And then the purpose of our chickens?
Chickens are for eggs.
Yep.
And to make more chickens.
Yep. So we would love to hatch out some. And then our meat birds, the purpose of them is literally to have our own ethically raised, clean meat. Yep. 3 more questions. How did you find the property?
Lots of Googling. Pretty much. Because we found, actually Sarah found this property. We were still in Ontario months before we moved here.
Yeah, we were still just considering moving. We were not.
Yeah, it was probably one of the first ones that she really liked.
Yeah, I loved it.
I hated it. Hated it.
And I think too, we have to give a lot of credit to our realtor, Andrea. Because Andrea, like, she listened to us and she knew what we wanted from asking questions. That the land, like, we were ready to live in a dump. We were looking at houses that, were in our budget and had land, which it's really not easy always to find land, right? And we knew we wanted land to homestead. And I think we thought we needed a lot more land than we did. Like, we have 7.5 acres here, and there's a lot of it that we haven't even touched in the almost year we've been here. Yeah. And I think, like, over time, we do have plans to use that land and things to do to modify it and improve it and more animals. But we didn't need 50 or 60 acres to homestead.
You can homestead on a lot less than you think.
Yeah, yeah. And if that's something that interests you too, if you're, have a, less than 1/4 of an acre yard and you're in the city somewhere, if you have the permission or the allowance to use your property as you want, you really can produce a lot of your own food. There's all kinds of stuff on underground chicken societies and stuff like that you can find on YouTube if you're really interested about, whether your city lets you have chickens or not. And but you can do some cool things with your yard for gardening as well. It's the whole idea of like grow a garden, not a pretty lawn, but gardens really are pretty. What or who inspired this journey, and was it hard to start? Justin Rhodes. I think he inspired the journey. He's the YouTuber we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I think that for me, like.
Yep. I can't think of anything else really that was the catalyst that got it all going.
Yeah. I think like it just looked so appealing, but then it also there was something else just kind of pulling and drawing into that lifestyle. And then at the same time maybe the other thing I guess too that inspired was we were looking at a lot of tiny house stuff and watching channels that were about alternative living styles and alternative housing options, and we were looking at options of how we wanted to build a tiny house, we thought at the time. And what it introduced to us is most of the people that were living in these tiny houses that they were interviewing on these channels on YouTube were people who lived off the land. A lot of them either had a couple chickens for eggs. Some people had meat chickens. Some people had a cow. A lot of people were just huge gardeners. But there's also just a whole mentality of sustainability and stewardship and using what you have and using it well, using all of it. And what you don't have, passing it on. Those kind of small communities, connecting with each other, kind of getting back to that simple living, back to the basics kind of lifestyle. So I think some of that in there too was a little bit of a catalyst, but I think we gotta throw it out there. Like, we are not sponsored, PS, but Justin Rhodes' videos really got, I think, us going on the.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it hard to start?
No.
I would say yes. Why do you say no?
Well, you need to pack the seeds.
Yeah. I think in my head it was a lot harder to start than it actually was. But in my head, I wanted to do all the things all at once. Like, it wasn't really homesteading until we had the land and the house, our own space, our own animals. We had full control over what we were doing. And like, homesteading could literally be right wherever you are in whatever circumstance you're in. You literally, like Josh said, you need to pack the seeds. It doesn't mean you can do all the homesteading things. Like, but we have land and a house now, and we're not doing all the homesteading things, and we probably never will. So it's so funny that you say yes and I say no. So probably in reality, it's really not that hard to start. It felt hard to start. But I think it's a really good practice in realizing, like, something that is worth going for is going to take time and effort and sacrifice and change. And also, too, I think the whole point of homesteading is a slower lifestyle. And it is kind of that full circle of planting the seed and then watching it grow, watering it, weeding it, then harvesting, then eating, then saving some of those seeds to then turn around and do it back again. And you're watching processes, you're being a part of the process, you're cultivating that, you're learning from that, and you're sharing that with your community. So it's a slow progression. It's not something that happens overnight with any of the steps of homesteading, really. So getting there is kind of the same way, because it's a progression. It's part of the cycle of getting to that starting point, I guess. Yeah. Last question is, why is Sarah the cooler homesteader than Josh?
Oh, man.
No, you're right. It's not.
You said you had 3 laps now.
Yeah, no, I couldn't keep a straight face. So one question that I wanted to ask us both before we end tonight is, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you have taken from homesteading?
Take time to enjoy where you are. You don't need to do all the things all at once. If you're so busy rushing around taking care of your chickens, your goats, your sheep, your cows, your pigs, and you don't take time to slow down and just watch everything in progress. That's one of the best privileges of it, is just seeing it in progress and watching those circles happen.
I think I would say, like, the biggest lesson that I've learned in this, like, 10 months of homesteading is that it's not about attaining a goal. Like, you have goals like harvesting your green beans or raising egg layers and that kind of thing, but it's not about getting to a mark or, like, crossing a finish line. Like, the goal is the process. Like, the whole point of homesteading is in the living itself, is in the doing the day and doing all the little things that make up the day. But, like, we get so caught up, and we do this in all of our things in our life, I think, but we get so caught up in, like, we're trying to get somewhere. Like, we'll be homesteaders win, or we'll be successful homesteaders win. But I think it really comes back more to, like, why are we doing this? Like, the whole point is sustainable, slow, simple living. Like, not to say we could call technology out or anything like that, but it's just easing back into really actually being present in where we are and being present in living now. Like, there is so much beauty in just simple and calm and imperfect. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah.